Welcome to the Psych Gym. I'm your trainer, Vanessa Perry, a former mental health therapist turned intuitive counselor. Much like a physical gym, in this space we'll aim to target specific psychological muscles and train them to be stronger. I'm so glad you are joining this gym. Let's hit the weights. Hey, y'all. Welcome back to the Psych Gym. I'm so glad you're here. I'm Vanessa, intuitive counselor and your coach today. Hyped for this one. It's a rough one, though, so buckle in. This is something that people fight me on the regular. It's not an easy concept to wrap your head around until you're doing it, which is, most of this stuff, right? It is when we're arguing for our limitations. And I know that feels like when I say that, it feels like that's not a thing I would do, right? Like I'm not going to argue for my limitations, but it's like giving life a glass ceiling on purpose, right? Like that's what that feels like. Why would I do that? Who wants to feel like they are creating their own problems? Unfortunately, it happens a lot. We all do it at times in our lives and to different extents. So we're not going to start this off with shame. We've talked about this many times. Shame has its place because it tells us that we are acting out of integrity, which is fine because there are no throwaway emotions, but we do not throw ourselves in the pit of shame. We are ultimately compassionate around here. So even if we do poke a tiny bit of fun at ourselves sometimes, balance is key. My goal is that by the end of this podcast, you'll be able to see how you're getting in your own way when it comes to elevating your life. How sometimes just a subtle shift in your belief systems can make you feel brave or make you see a different perspective that helps you find life fulfillment in an easier way. Sounds delightful, right? It is. So what does this mean? Let's do what I shouldn't say always because I know I don't always do it, but we're going to start with a definition. What does it mean to argue for your limitations? To put it simply, it's any time that you're defending why you can't do something. I know, again, it sounds really weird to think about when you hear it out loud. The words defending why I can't, defending. It sounds like we should be saying explaining why we can't, right? Giving real reasons. That's usually why we think we are doing it. But what often happens is when someone offers up a perspective that's different, we'll double down on why that isn't an option for us before we even stop to think on it. So what are some ways that this happens? Things that I hear often when I'm talking to people, either in my life or in sessions, things that like trigger the idea of, I think we're stepping into limitation and allowing that to take over. We're going to start arguing for our limitations. I'll give you a few examples. I'm too old. Lord have mercy, how many times I've heard that. I don't have time. That's just how I am. Not with my anxiety. Or I can't do blah, blah, blah for A, B, C reasons, right? There's just a string of reasons why I can't do this thing that we have just talked about possibly doing. As always, we're not outlining this to invalidate the thoughts. They're here for a reason. Our brain is wired for safety, and that can look like trying to create predictability, identity preservation, or risk reduction. It's the message that these things are giving us, telling us not to even explore the options. That's the thing that breaks my heart to see. It's why I challenge my clients and people in my life and myself about what we all believe we're capable of. I've seen too many amazing things happen in the counseling space to believe in limitations like that. I've also seen them in my own life. Sometimes I look back and I think, there are a lot of things I legitimately had no idea I had the capability of doing. Things that if you go back 2 years before I did that thing, that woman would absolutely say, no way in hell I could do that. And yet I'm looking back on that woman who did that. So when you do that, when you actually look back and see how sometimes you're very wrong about your limitations, I can help loosen this a little bit. So why do we do this? Let's talk a little bit more about it. Getting into, kind of what the hell is my brain doing? Why would my brain want to make my life suck? It's because, while I think it's a great surface level thought to know that our brain is wired for safety, it might not land how deep this actually goes. It's more than this is so scary. It's about why. The deep-rooted traumas and fears that vulnerability and risk open us up to. Truths about ourselves and others. Realities that are hard to face because once we know them, we will have to live with the guilt of not doing anything about it. The idea that ignorance is bliss. That's a real thing for many of us, consciously and subconsciously. The self-protection that comes with this concept is really crazy. It's intricate when you think about it. It's against our will, seemingly, that these limitations feel so real. Again, I'm saying it out loud and it's like, I don't want to argue for my limitations. I don't want to do that, but yet we're doing it. So it's like against our will, right? The truth is that even our real limitations are often not even the barriers we think they are. With just a little bit more information and a belief system shift, sometimes a little bit more support, that magic can feel more real than the reality that we've been accepting. To me, that's the biggest part of this concept, the lack of belief in magic, honestly. There's so much that is possible. Things that look impossible happen to people who are brave every single day. I know because I watch it. Not because they're just randomly anointed, somebody didn't just come around and oh, here you go. Here's some magic for you. None for you, though. Sorry. It's because they choose to believe in something different, at least trying something different. But why, Vanessa? You promised to tell us why the brain is doing this to us. Right? Tangent City over here. Here are just some of the reasons I have seen in my counseling space and in my own life, right? I'm not shy about talking about my own life. Doing something new opens us up to the idea of failure. And depending on how public that feels, the idea of humiliation when you fail, that right there can stop people from even thinking about doing something risky. Depending on how you were raised to think about failure, this can stop you before you even start the brainstorming part. I've seen it happen, right? When I start to be like, okay, well, what do you think that you might want to do? And before they even get to what they might want to do, they start to talk about what's gone wrong or how hard their lives are, or, what they'll just start with the limitations. And I'm like, dude, we were talking about dreaming. I asked you to dream. How did we not even touch it? Again, some of this deep rooted stuff that the brain accesses subconsciously before we even hit the conscious, because it's just like, nope, absolutely not. We're not going to go there. We're not even going to try to go there, because if I bring the dream up, it's going to make me hurt when I inevitably decide that it's going to be a failure. So let's just not even bring it up. How about that? Brain, amazing thing, but Lord have mercy, sometimes it hurts. Another thing, something I find still happens to me, is the idea of what success means in terms of responsibility and accountability. If I start something that feels like I have to maintain it in a way that overwhelms me before I start, I'm apt to not even start it, to be honest. And this is a real confession. Working on it, but it's a real confession. I'll start to talk about how I don't have time or that my plate is already too full. Again, true, but is it? Because I know damn well that I have always been able to make space when needed. Right? I can make space for trips. I can make space for hockey tournaments. Right? I can make space. But that automatic thing comes in usually as nervousness in the gut, right? Some people do like a feeling first. My body tells me before I even know what the hell's going on, right? Like my gut is like, ugh, and then I have to search my feelings for why that happened. I'll start to feel that flutter, and then I have to dismiss the idea in order for it to go away. Right. I have learned how to be more brave, and that doesn't happen nearly as much as it used to, that gut and that, stopping things. But it still happens. How did I overcome that? I had to learn how to be okay with pivots, abandoning things halfway done if they no longer align, or simply just changing my mind when I learned enough to want to change my mind, to not let what others think of that be what controls my future and my destiny. Like, period. Okay? Letting what others think control your future and destiny. What? But if you stop and think about it, that happens so much. Right? We're afraid. We're afraid of the people in our lives leaving us. We're afraid of a lot of things if we actually sit and think about why we will let our limitations exist and why we will not try to surpass any kind of block that makes us feel this way. So let's talk about another reason that this happens is our identity. If you haven't listened to the podcast, I don't remember what number it is, but it is about our traumas stacked in a trench coat, right? Like that we become all of our traumas and turn it into identity. This is really big. There are a lot of people living in identities that no longer fit them because it's easier than imagining what it would be like to live as what they think someone else is. Terrible sentence structure. I understand. I wrote it. I read it. I'm like, dude, what? But yeah, so people will stay who they are because the idea of who they think they'll become is very uncomfortable, right? Because a lot of times we're looking at people we know, right? And we're just trying to compare ourselves to that. Is that what I want to look like? Is that what I want to act like? Forgetting that, like, we're never going to act like somebody else. We're never going to be somebody else. We're always going to be us. And that we don't even have to go all the way to whatever we've decided that that person is. You know, you don't live as someone else. You feel like that person too, wholly and unapologetically when you do this work. You feel just like that old persona. But with identity often comes a lot of other logistics that can freak people out. Shifting relationships, friendships, jobs, homes. There can be a lot of change that just feels too overwhelming. It becomes easier to settle into a persona that feels good enough or comfortable. I know. It feels that way, right? Like it feels like invalidating yourself if you decide to change. I get it. I get all of this stuff. Obviously, it's what I do. But look at how it can limit us to decide that this is the person I have to be for my entire life. This is how I have to act. This is where I have to live. These are the people around me forever. Nothing can ever change. What? I don't know about y'all. I mean, we know I can't do that. But is that really how you want to live? Is that what you want to look back on and say, hey, I didn't stretch into anything else. I just stayed right there. And not because you're not valid as who you are, but because there's so many beautiful opportunities out there to grow and to feel and to experience. Sorry, I had a moment. Y'all know I love this. So anyway, back to the podcast, Vanessa. With all these examples, what we want to do is look at how those beliefs got there. How did your trauma shape these things? Or did someone tell you that you forgot where you came from even? Sometimes that has happened in my life. Did that create an identity wound? Did someone tell you that you are untrustworthy because you change your mind a lot? Or did they call you wishy-washy? These feel like evidences. I know. They feel like evidence that the thing is true. But in our counseling sessions, we break down how those are just reflections of the person serving it up and less about wanting to help you live your life as who you are. So real support does that, though. Real support supports you, understands your life journey, even when it doesn't make sense to them. And I'm not saying that your friends are shitty if they can't, cheerlead you on when you're doing dumb shit, because, I mean, my friends, I love them so much. They have watched me do tons of crazy things, tons of things that didn't make any sense, tons of things that, yes, in hindsight, were pretty dumb. But the support part of it being that they're not trying to argue for my limitations either, right? They're not letting me limit myself. And that matters, right? It matters to have that kind of support. So how does this mess with us? What's the freaking problem, Vanessa? Why can't I just live a simple life with limitations? What's the cost of living this? Your realistic point of view, simply put, costs you a fuller life. On a simplistic note, it can cost you experiences in places, experiences of friends, hobbies, so many things. Things that can enrich your heart and soul and expand your brain. It also truly keeps us in a powerless state. It steals our empowerment. That is pretty easy to see when it's laid out like that, right? Literally letting outside things control us, steal our power, tell us that they are in the driver's seat and you're just here to ride this very underwhelming ride. So dramatic. One that sometimes we even feel we have to detach emotionally from in order to survive it, right? So if you are detached emotionally from your life because you're surviving it, come on, man. Like, we can't say your life is supposed to be that way. Is that what you really think you came here to do? Man. So what sucks about this the most is that it does create a self-fulfilling prophecy. Even when we do sometimes lean into doing something brave, our subconscious is strong as fuck, y'all. Do not sleep on how this can happen without you even knowing and creating a belief system within you that says you can't and don't deserve things. It creates a skilled internal saboteur to protect you. My saboteur is like, Lord have mercy, she's so strong because she was afraid a lot and she had to defend me a lot. But it also literally creates the failures that you then will call evidence. It's wild, right? It's a real thing, I promise you. Because I've sat with enough people that when they have appropriate support and guidance are able to baby step into incredible change and lives that they absolutely love living. And myself too. Once I learned how to figure this out, to not argue for my limitations, to not say things like, that's who I am, or that's how I was raised, or people like me don't do that. When I stopped saying those things, I started creating different things in my life, and things that felt like failures were just like that fail forward situation of saying, oh, now I learned what not to do, or now I learned what I don't like, just moving forward, right? With intention and inspiration, the inspiration to keep chasing the good, not because what I have is bad, but it's like, ooh, what else is out there? It's with wonder and curiosity. It's beautiful. So I kind of want to stop the podcast there, but I have to finish. Right, I wrote the damn thing. I'm gonna say the whole thing. So what are some tools? This is important though. I need to give you tools. What are some important tools that we can use? First, and not just because of what I do for a living, but please do look around you and see if there are people that can support you in this shift. If not, find a professional to help. I mean, it's probably a good idea to find a professional to help anyway, because sometimes we have people in our lives that don't have the ability to stretch into what we need, but sometimes we do. You know, you might have a friend who you feel like inspires you, maybe is in a place where you'd like to be in, and you can talk to them and they can help you stretch into deciding to make some changes in your life that will move you forward. But as for you approaching these thoughts and changing the narrative, one of the most easily spoken about but difficult to follow through on is what they call opposite thinking in CBT. Y'all know how much I do not like to use the clinical terms, but I feel like there's just no other way to lay it out. We literally just ask, what if the opposite were true? And then try to reverse engineer that. We ask how it became true for others who do experience it, and take apart all the excuses that the brain comes up with for why those people can have it, but we cannot. Basically, what we're trying to do is create just enough doubt that the initial denial is no longer looking valid. Right? We stop using the blanket statements of deciding why somebody has something. Oh, well, they had money. Oh, well, they had blah. that's why they can do it, or they're smarter, or they're whatever, right? We're just trying to put some denial in there to go, well, I don't know, maybe they weren't smarter. What? Maybe you're smarter than them, and maybe that's what's getting in your way is you're too analytical. What? Yeah. That happens. So good. It's beautiful when it happens. I love it. Sometimes we really need some good mantras or post-its. I use post-its like crazy. You'll know that if you follow my social media. I have one on my keyboard right in front of me at this very moment. It's a reminder to check in with who's controlling my actions in the moment, the alchemist or the saboteur. Because I've been going through it. Leo season, my saboteur was like, I've got carte blanche because we're feeling spicy. No, ma'am. It works well for me to have these visuals. The key to a mantra, though, is not to just use a generic one, or sometimes not even what someone suggests. What I just wrote here or just read to you might not work for you because you might not connect to saboteur and alchemist as words. But I like to come up with them together with my clients. Like, how do you speak to yourself normally? So let's add on to it. So it sounds like your voice. Things like, if someone else figured it out, so can I. Or things like, I don't have to do this fast in order to do it. And limits our perception. I love that one a lot. That's like more ethereal, but sometimes if you have that somewhere in your house and every time you walk by it, limits our perception, eventually your brain is going to understand that limits our perception. You don't say. Replacing thoughts, right? Replacing belief systems is just a matter of doing it. So basically what we're trying to do is stop thinking you're protecting yourself with these reasons/limitations. You want to start to feel like it is not protection, that it's actually holding you back from greatness. You heard? This is not protecting me. This is holding me back from greatness. I wrote the words on the script, and now I need to write it on Post-it. This helps you start to become an advocate for yourself instead of someone who attacks you with ideas about how to keep yourself small. So let's do a little exercise here, a little quick recap before we close out. So step one, we're going to catch and we're going to call out our limiting argument, right? Like, we're going to call it out. Is that fact? Like, straight up fact. Is there any other possibility? Or am I just acting from fear? Right? So the second we start to be like, I can't, as soon as you hear I can't, I want you to stop and say, okay, why can't I, first of all? And is it an I won't? Right? Then next we're going to say, well, what would happen if the opposite were true? Like, how could that look? What would that mean? What would have to be there? And then we start to, again, reverse engineer it. Start to build possibilities. Think about even your past, times that you did surprise yourself, right? Because literally all we're trying to do is break that belief a little bit to start. Just that little bit of doubt, like I was talking about before. Is that 100% true? And as long as we get to, I don't know, we're good. All right, like, we can just start going. And then, the last thing that we're due once we start to build those possibilities is we start to do small things that we think we can't do to collect new evidence. Even if that small step is allowing yourself to believe enough to start going to collect the information, it's a step, right? So you start to ask people questions. You're like, okay, I'm doing it. I'm doing something. It's making me go forward to really test the hypothesis of I can't, right? We're becoming scientists of our own selves. We're detectives. That's what I usually use. I don't use scientists. I use detectives. I say, go be a detective and bring that information back here, and we're going to talk about it. All movement forward is movement forward. All of it. As long as we're not staying in the same story, we're moving forward, right? We're creating something else. So, with all of this being said, you can still decide to spend your life arguing for why you can't. I'm going to let you do that. You can do whatever you want. This is your journey. But you can also make the decision to argue for, living, experiencing, wonder, all kinds of other things that maybe you think are only for other people. You can decide to think about that. And I want you to really, though, try it. Try to see if you can catch yourself arguing for your limitations, or at least identifying when you're arguing for your limitations. Identify the I can't. See what happens. A lot of times awareness is the first part of the shift anyway, right? And you almost don't have to go deeper than that. As soon as you're like, oh God, I'm doing it, right? You'll start to shift into doing something else. So try it. I want the best for all of you. That's why I'm here, right? I'm just here because I want to share information that might help people who can't sit down with me and do this work, or people who are afraid, or people who just kind of want to do a little bit on their own, and then maybe we'll go get somebody to help them deal with these things and move through these things. But God, I just want everybody to feel good. I want everybody to live life. I want everybody to be on their deathbed going, oh God, I'm so glad that I lived for me and not for belief systems and societal norms and generational trauma. Delicious. So as always, share this with somebody if you think that they could use it. I hope that you got something out of it, and, take care of yourselves. Thank you for letting me be your guide today. Love y'all. Thanks for listening. To learn more about what I do and how to work with me, head to thepsychgym.com to check it out. Keep lifting, y'all. It's worth it.